Hey, good morning. As we're logging on, everybody, hope happy Thursday to you. Hope everybody's doing well and surviving week 4, 5, 6, whatever week of quarantine. Um, it's been another interesting week, and we certainly are learning a lot about our community, our government, a lot more about our family than some of us wanted to know, quite frankly. But we're adjusting. But we are thrilled today to have NP Strategy with us, and Jean Cecil Frick has been, many of y'all know Jean Cecil, and she's joined by Jessica Mackey, who's part of the NP Strategy team as well. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, but let me just tell you, full disclosure, Jean Cecil's been on our executive board here at the Chamber for a number of years, and I've gotten to know her over the last 10 years or so, and she's a dynamo. So we're excited that she's part of this today and talking about how we adjust to the new norm to now. And so what I would encourage y'all to do, a little housekeeping, we've got everybody muted to give Jean Cecil the floor. There's a chat box at the bottom. So feel free to, if you have a question for Jean Cecil or Jessica, feel free to entertain the chat box. I think there's a place to raise your hand. We can include that, or we can unmute you if you've got a question, but make sure you put that in the chat. Without any further ado, Jean Cecil, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate the introduction and want to thank the Chamber. You can't see behind the scenes, Rose and Anna are helping run these educational webinars, and so appreciate the Chamber hosting these 2 times a week to help educate the membership and answer questions that you have during these unprecedented times. So Carl mentioned that he and I have known each other for about a decade now. I started out my career in Washington, D.C., sort of on the front lines, working on Capitol Hill, and later on as part of the Bush administration. And then after the economic downturn of 2008, 2009, I realized I wanted to be back in my home state of South Carolina. So I moved back to South Carolina to continue on in my career, and got reconnected with Carl, which has been wonderful, and actually had the opportunity to serve on the front lines as I worked at the Department of Employment and Workforce for 1.5 years as part of their Government Affairs and Special Projects team. And I have to tell you, I am sort of missing those days right now, because being on the front lines, you really feel like you have the opportunity to help people. And but I am thrilled that in my new role at NP Strategy, where I've been for the past few years, I'm able to serve people in a new way and help them push their message forward. So anyways, Jessica and I are very excited to be with you all this morning, and I'll turn it over to Jessica to give a brief introduction as well.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jessica Mackey. I am a senior project advisor with NP Strategy, and I have been in South Carolina my entire career. Started out in local government down in the Charleston area, and then have moved around to Columbia and different places, working for a large engineering firm doing strategic communications, and recently have joined NP Strategy and continuing to advance my communications career here. But I am so happy to talk with you guys this morning. You know, the experience of this pandemic has changed how we all interact with each other in ways that, you know, I don't think anybody ever envisioned or imagined it would be. And so, like, right now I am doing a webinar hiding out in my 6-year-old daughter's room to get to get a quiet time so that they can still have time. I have a 6-year-old and 3-year-old, so they can still have time to play in the house. But still, it's worthwhile that we can all still be together and actually have this opportunity to have a format like this to still discuss.
Thank you, Jessica. So I am going to share my screen in just a moment and walk through a presentation with you all. But this time, our time together this morning is meant to be beneficial to you all So I do have some tips that we want to share with you this morning, but please don't be shy about asking questions. I'm happy to pause at any time to talk through things that may be on your mind right now. So please don't be shy, and bear with me as I am not a technology expert, but excited about these new tools that we have available to us to get to still be together when we can't see each other in person. So I am going to share my screen, I think. Excuse me just a minute. All right, can someone give me the thumbs up that it's sharing? Okay, great, awesome, thank you. So for those of you that may not be familiar with NP Strategy, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about our team. So you can see our picture here. We have a full team besides Jessica and I that are spread out across 8 offices throughout the Carolinas. So we have a presence in both North and South Carolina, and we focus on well, let me back up a second and say that we are a strategic communications subsidiary of Nexon Pruitt Law Firm. So many of you have probably heard of Nexon Pruitt, but you may not realize that the NP in NP Strategy actually stands for Nexon Pruitt. And so the team that you see in front of you is a group of former journalists, corporate communications experts, government affairs staffers. You heard me talk about that a little bit. And we help guide companies from Fortune 500 companies like Google and Samsung to local nonprofits like Harvest Hope Food Bank and the Girl Scouts of Mountains to Midlands, tell their stories, deliver their message. We help with crisis communications, public relations, media relations, as well as stakeholder engagement. And you're going to hear me talk a little bit more about stakeholder engagement as we go through this presentation today, but wanted to give you a little bit of background about the team apart from Jessica and I. But today's focus is really going to be about managing the now and preparing for the future. So we are all figuring out how to adjust to this new norm. And so we have pulled together some tips to help guide you through these unprecedented times. So to start out, what are the big questions that we're all facing? What can you be doing that will help you now and in the future? Ultimately, the goal for all of us is to emerge out of this time better and stronger than we were before. So how are you retooling your business to weather COVID-19 and prepare for emerging in a new normal? So we all remember, I think everyone on the phone would remember well, September 11th. And that was another major crisis that hit our country completely unexpected. And we had to adjust to a new normal. Out of that came the Department of Homeland Security. And the way we travel today is different than how we traveled before 9/11. And so the airport security is night and day after September 11th happened. And so we know that things are going to change based on the current crisis that we're facing. And so during this time, we need to be thinking about how are we going to be prepared for these changes. I know just sitting here doing this webinar with you all, with most of us working from home, it's amazing to me that we're all still able to connect and see each other. You know, so as businesses, as nonprofits, we are all finding ways to invest. So the big answers, I can say that we don't have all the answers, but at NP Strategy, we have pulled together some thoughts that we think are simple to help guide you as you are going through this time. So we've pulled together 4 R's. We think you need to reach in, to reach out, to retool, and to reinforce. So I'm going to walk through each of these 4 steps and give you tips on how we think you can do that. There is one common denominator that exists with all of these ideas, and that is to be authentic and honest. Now is a time when, I mean, let's be candid. Some of us are scared, we're worried, we don't know what the future looks like, and we need to be honest with each other and know that we're all facing the same thing. No one is in this crisis alone. And so as you're communicating, recognize that. Be honest, be authentic. If you're a leader who is talking with employees, be upfront. Don't hide the truth. Don't fudge the truth. Be open and authentic with anyone that you're speaking with. So on the slide here, you see we are suggesting that you communicate from the heart. That is so true right now, because when you communicate from the heart, you are being authentic and honest. And so we know that consumers and even your employees will turn their back on you if they don't feel like you are being authentic and honest with them. So if you don't get anything else out of our time together this morning, I want you to remember how important this is. And so just to reinforce the bullets that you see here on the screen, be true to your brand, your personality, your organization, the values that you have set in place as a company, the mission that you established when your organization got started. Look back at those things and refocus on all those things that matter and be true to what that mission and those values are. Once again, be honest always. These are trying times for everyone. There's no reason to hide it. Be upfront. And remember that it's okay to express empathy. We're all human. We all have feelings. There is uncertainty right now. And so it is okay to recognize that both with your employees and your customers, but at the same time, reinforce that you are strong, you have a plan, you have the tools in place to help emerge stronger than you are today. So at NP Strategy, we work on stakeholder engagement. And for us, stakeholders are different groups, your target audiences. And so oftentimes when we're working with an organization, we will rank our stakeholders and determine how we want to communicate with each stakeholder. So right now, one of your most important stakeholders are your employees. They need to hear directly from you if you are the leader of the organization, or if you manage team members. Let them hear from you, but don't let them hear from you once. Let them hear from you regularly. Check in on them. Make sure they're doing okay. And most importantly, set the right tone. So to go back from what I was saying before, you get to set the tone of strength, courage, empathy, putting yourself in their shoes, knowing that we're all facing these unprecedented times together. So you can see a blank black screen in front of you, and as good as technology is, sometimes there are flaws. And the flaw this time is on your speaker, because I am not sure how to get the volume to work for you. but I have a video that I wanted to share with you all that is from the leader of Nexon Pruitt. So Nexon Pruitt is a law firm in North and South Carolina with over 200 employees. Our leader, Leighton Lord, happens to live in Columbia and work in the office where Jessica and I work. So we get to see him regularly, although not these days. But he wanted to be able to communicate with all of his employees. And so the best way for him to do that was through video that he sent out in an email to everyone. And so I was hoping to share this video with you all today, but ends up that with the with Zoom, it's delayed a little bit, but I'm going to play it just a little bit so you can see him. I know that you're not able to hear him, and so I apologize for that. But I just want to speak to the authenticity of what's going on here. Okay, so hopefully right now you can see that Leighton is in a pullover sweater, a button-down shirt with a t-shirt underneath. He is standing in front of the Nexon Pruitt sign. So the reason why I wanted you all to still be able to see this image, even though you can't hear exactly what his message is that you can clearly see two things right here. He's being true to the brand. He is, standing in front of the Nexon Pruitt sign because he is speaking to all of his Nexon Pruitt employees. But then he's also being authentic. He's not in a suit and tie as he is delivering this message of encouragement and hope to his employees. He is dressed like many of us are dressed right now as we're working from home. And so he's meeting his employees where they are. Something that I haven't mentioned yet that Leighton mentions in the video is the safety of your employees. So as you're communicating to your employees, it's very important that you recognize with them that their safety is your #1 priority. As government leaders are currently focused on, we're still in the heart of this pandemic, but people are starting to talk about when are we reopening? When are businesses going to get to go back to normal? And I know the president hosted a call with CEOs yesterday, and as I was reading the news reports from that, every single article focused on the fact that these CEOs were saying, we have to focus on the safety of our employees first. And that is so important. And as you communicate, make sure that you are delivering that message. So we talked about reaching in to your employees. One of your should be your #1 stakeholder during this situation. But you also want to reach in to your customers, your donors, your suppliers, your partners. How should you be doing that? So again, I mentioned that in Peace Strategy, we pull together stakeholder lists, and we think it's important that you rank your stakeholders. You can't always reach everybody at one time. There may be some people that are so important to you and your organization that they deserve a call. Just check in on them. Ask them what you can do to help during this time. Let them know that you're thinking about them. While there may be others that an email will suffice. But I encourage you to take this time to think through your stakeholders, your most important donors, your most important customers, suppliers, partners, whatever they are, and think through how you want to communicate with them, whether by calling them or emailing them, but do it regularly. These are times where, we've been at this for over a month now, where we've all been adjusting to this new normal, and it's going to last a lot longer. And so go ahead and set these patterns in place where you have regular check-ins. So just a few tips that I've put on here. Express interest and concern in their well-being. Let them know that you're thinking about them. Update them on what your company is doing for your employees. If you're in a situation where some employees may have been furloughed, you have a smaller staff, maybe some folks aren't working on Mondays, let your customers know that. So if they're looking for information from you, they may know, okay, well, on Mondays, I may not get the response that I'm used to getting. So don't forget that even though that educating your employees is so important, but you've also got to educate those that you're working with and keep them informed about the changes that you're making. And then finally, ask them what you can do to help. It may be very simple, and it may be that you can't help them today, but you can help them down the road. And that showing that empathy is so important for people right now. So there is a quote from Mark Twain that I think is very relevant right now, and that is, kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And so, you know, we are facing a time where kindness goes a long way.
And JC, let me add to that and just say, you know, when you're thinking about ways to reach out and help, it doesn't always have to be business related. You know, I talked about being at home with my 2 young children. Oftentimes, you know, I'm not the only one living like that, right? A lot of people are at home with their kids and still trying to make it through doing, you know, school packets and keep up with their normal workload. And so even reaching out and sharing, you know, tips or, you know, online learning tools that you've learned or your employees have learned that have helped you cope and get through the workday with kids at home, and sharing that with, you know, your partners or other suppliers, those little tools to show empathy, show you care, and it doesn't always have to be about business.
Thanks, Jessica. So now I want to focus on reaching out. And again, these are stakeholders that you should rank. Think about who you want to touch. But think about who are your neighbors in your business, who are competitors, who are others that are in your industry. And now is a time when you can band together to make a difference. So I think about the manufacturing industry, where several manufacturers across the nation and even locally here in the Midlands are making changes to serve their country during this trying time, whether they're making PPE or they're providing hand sanitizer. You know, these are times where we throw away our normal and think about how we can connect, collaborate, and rise together to make all of us stronger during these unprecedented times. And something else that I want to mention that, you know, may not be top of mind, but as we talked about on the last slide, kindness goes a long way. Look at this opportunity as a time to mend a fence. Maybe there is someone in your industry that you don't have a great relationship with, but now's the time when you could actually join together and do some good. And so I think that we're not always thinking like that because you may be frustrated from something that's happened in the past. But I strongly encourage you to think positively during these times and think about mending a fence where you may have had a bad relationship in the past. So this is actually one of my favorites, and it may be because of my background of government service, but reach out to your local leaders and to the public. So we know that there are so many people on the front lines right now, our healthcare workers, our law enforcement, are government leaders who are making tough decisions right now. And it's very important that we be grateful for what they are doing to serve us right now, that we be encouraging, and that we also be available. So I have contacts at different levels of government from my previous work, and I can't help but think of them every single day and the tough decisions that they're having to make, or the chaos that they may be facing right now, as I think about my former colleagues at DEW. And so I, Jean Cecil Frick, cannot change someone's life, but if I can put a smile on their face for just a second during the day, it was worth it to me. And so I have been sending out notes of encouragement and just shooting a text or sending an email to people that I know are on the front lines right now, having to make tough decisions. And so I would encourage you that if you have a relationship with people who are on the front lines right now, thank them. Send them notes of encouragement. Think of ways that you can support them. And, you know, this is not meant to be a self-serving exercise. This is meant to be authentic and honest. And if you are doing things within your organization, like delivering lunch to healthcare workers or something like that, share it. It may give someone else the idea to do it too. And so again, it's not meant to be self-serving. It is meant to show others that you are trying to lift people up during these trying times. So we pulled reports of conversations that are taking place online. And in the last 2 weeks, COVID-19 has been mentioned almost 200 million times. Zoom or online meeting, more than 1 million social engagements since February. LinkedIn is another place where people are hungry for thought leadership. And so social media is a tool that is available to all of us. And during these times where people are at home more, they're looking at social media more, I think. And so I would strongly encourage you to look at your social media channels and think about how you can help tell your story or be a thought leader during these times, and take advantage of the resources that are there with social media. Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing here. So we may think that we know what others need, but don't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask. And so the reason I say this is that we are working with a company that is wanting to do some good within a community. And so we wanted to help with law enforcement or the school system, something where we could help encourage them during this time. And so we thought that maybe it was something we could do for the teachers, because they're all adjusting to this new norm. And so we reached out to the school district superintendent, only to have her say to us, the teachers are doing great. Right now, it's the bus drivers and it's the food preparers who are feeling very isolated and lonely right now. And they are the ones that really need the encouragement right now. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask, what do you need? How can I help you right now? Don't just assume that you know. Okay, so here's another example where my video is not going to play, but I'm just going to talk to it because I think it's relevant. Um, so the Cason Group is a local group that serves insurance brokers and advisors. And so as we were talking to them, they were sharing with us that they've been on the forefront of technology for a long time and that it's never been more relevant than it is now. And so we said it's the perfect time to do a video to have you talking about technology and how it can serve your partners today. And they may not realize all the tools that you have available where people can do online enrollment. You know, if you think about your insurance and you may have to, a lot of people still use paper when they should be doing online enrollment. And so especially during these times when we can't meet in person or we don't want to have to scan something, you know, this online enrollment is very important. And so we had the president of the Cason Group pull together a video where he's talking about technology. But before he goes into discussing the solution that the Cason Group has, he comes on the screen and is authentic. He is empathetic and recognizes the current situation that everybody is in. And then he goes in to talk about the solution that his team is able to provide to people during these trying times. And so Jessica is going to share, I think maybe in the comments, we're going to share access to this video if you want to watch it later. But I wanted to share this with you because it reinforces some of the things that I've been talking about today. And in the video, he closes with saying, "We are praying for you during these times." And I mention that because the Cason Group is known for their values and their culture. And one of those, and part of that is their biblically based values. And so he was being true to his brand and the culture of his company by closing the video of saying, "You are all in our thoughts and prayers." So he's very open, honest, authentic in the message he's delivering, but then he's also helping describe how he can ease a pain point that could be going on within your organization right now. So I'm sorry that I can't show it in real time, but anyways, it is a good video. And thanks to social media, we were able to get it out to a much larger audience. And since it launched last week, it's already reached more than 3,000 people across LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So social media can be a tremendous resource to you right now. So also with reaching out, I wanted to talk about getting out of your comfort zone to connect with others. So I'm doing it right now. I thank Carl Blackstone for encouraging me to lead some of the issues forums that the chamber has hosted. And I look forward to getting back in the room with you all when we're able to do that safely. But presenting is, and talking in front of a group is really not something that, well, I don't want to say I don't enjoy doing it, but let's just say that it's out of my comfort zone. It's something where usually I like to be behind the scenes helping direct people where I don't necessarily like to be the one in the spotlight. But if I can help give a piece of advice today that helps you, it's worth it to me. And so I'm willing to get out of my comfort zone during this time to help encourage others. And so I have this slide up here to encourage you to think about things that you could be doing that maybe you haven't done in the past, and maybe it forces you to get out of your comfort zone. But maybe you should start a weekly call, whether with your partners, or Zoom meeting. I mean, I think what the chamber's doing is a perfect example of what I'm trying to say right here, is that the chamber said, okay, what can we do for our membership during this time to help support them? And so they've started these impact webinars that are happening twice a week. So chamber's doing a great job of reaching out to their membership. You can launch your own video effort. I just showed, well, I didn't get to show you, but I just talked about William Kaysen doing the video for the Kaysen group. It was out of his comfort zone to shoot that video, but he knew that it was the right time to do it. And so he went ahead and did it. We've talked about leveraging social media. I think it's important to remember that this is not about selling a widget right now. This is about connecting with your audience, being sympathetic, showing empathy. And so one thing that MP Strategy has done to reach out during this time is we did an ad buy on outlets, newsletter outlets across the state with what you see on the screen. It just says, be strong and courageous. We're not asking for anything from you. We're not asking you to click on a link. We are simply sharing that we're behind you and we're thinking about you. And these are tough times, and we encourage you to be strong and courageous. And so I cannot take credit for that idea, but I'm really proud of the team for doing it. And I think it is a wonderful way for us to connect with others during this time. So we've talked about reaching in, reaching out. How can you retool during this time? So this is something where what the chamber's doing is great, because we all need to learn from each other. I talked about sharing things on social media. That's how we can learn from each other. But consider how you are adapting to this new normal and look at what others are doing. And you may be inspired by them to make a change in what you're doing as well. Brainstorm with your team. So we're all isolated right now. Thanks to Zoom meetings and other technology, we're able to connect. But don't just have meetings, have brainstorming sessions. One of my bosses in DC used to say, I surround myself with people smarter than me. Recognize that none of us have all the answers, but we're stronger together. And so when you pull your team together and ask them to share their ideas, the light bulb can go off. And you may be able to retool in a way that you never imagined. So make sure that you're talking to everyone on your team, from the person answering the phones, to the person cutting the checks, to the person making the tough decisions. Everyone has ideas and thoughts. And so take the time to listen to them. Also, take the time to strengthen yourself. Take those online courses that you've been avoiding, that you haven't had the time to do before. So I know one thing for our team, we are taking a deeper dive on Google Analytics and Facebook. How can we go deeper on those analytics to help our clients make decisions? So use this time to your advantage to strengthen your own skill sets or the skill sets of your team. We've talked before about looking for new partnerships. This can be for business, for personal reasons, for community reasons. Be creative and think about new partnerships that you can form. And then finally, think about what you've been putting off. You know, for some of us, we may need a new brand, and we just haven't wanted to take the time to refresh the brand that we have. or you may need a new website, or you may have outdated marketing materials that you need to redo. We have extra time right now, and so take the time to do those things that you've been putting off. So one of the things that NP strategy has been behind as a retooling during this time is that it's been a goal of our team to launch a podcast. And we've been talking about it for well over a year. And we thought that this would be an initiative that we would probably launch later in the year, honestly. But then with everything that's going on, we realized there's no better time than now. This is a time, we knew that we wanted it to be an economic development podcast where we're talking with other business leaders. And those of you who may not be familiar with Bernie Maybank, he is a lawyer at Nexon Pruitt, but he's also a former director of the Department of Revenue. And he's got a wonderful, quirky personality. And so when he's on the podcast, he makes it very entertaining. So anyways, we said there's no better time than now to go ahead and launch this podcast. And so we launched it last week, and we literally put it together in 2 weeks. We've had the idea for a long time, but we realized now is when businesses want to be hearing from each other, learning from each other. And so we retooled and we pulled this together. And thanks to technology, we're able to host our interviewees through Zoom. And so they've been talking, they've been doing the interviews through Zoom. And so we launch new episodes every Wednesday. And so we have a whole series lined up, but I think this is a great example of ways that you can retool right now to emerge stronger later. And then finally, I just want to highlight that you can reinforce all of this by giving back. So we've talked about kindness, we've talked about empathy, we've talked about being honest. You know, this is a time when our community needs us. Our colleagues need each other. Our friends need each other. You know, families need each other. And think about how you can get involved, how you can volunteer your time, how you can use your skill sets to strengthen others. And this is not about monetary donations. You know, most of us are not in a position to be able to be doing that right now, but there are other ways that you can give back. And so it's important to think through those things and to be there for one another. So the very last bullet there is check in and stick together. We need each other more now than ever, and that matters. So check in on your people, find ways to retool, to reach in, to reach out. I've got a few examples of some things that are happening here in the Midlands that all this was on social media. I talked about, you know, you can get great ideas by seeing what other people are doing. And on the left here, Sisters of Charity delivered lunch to members of Providence Health Hospital. And they posted and shared that. You know, it's not self-serving, it's just showing the good that you are doing and showing you care for others. Palmetto Health has an annual chemopalooza where they raise money for childhood cancers. Well, they found a way to keep moving forward. So they're doing the chemopalooza live rather than doing it in person. So they have found ways to reach during this time. And then I previously mentioned that we have a local manufacturer, Nephron Pharmaceuticals, who makes respiratory drugs. But they found a way to retool during this time and make hand sanitizer. that they were able to share. Here they're highlighting the VA hospital, but I know they've shared it with the state legislature and others. There are numerous ways where you can find ways to retool during this time. And these are just a few examples of things that are going on in the Midlands. So that really sums up the message that I wanted to share today. I want to encourage all of you to think of ways that you can give back. Think of ways that you can partner with others, be there for others. But remember the 4 R's that we've discussed. Reach in to your employees, your key stakeholders for your organization. Reach out to others in the community. Find ways to retool and find ways to reinforce by giving back. So thank you all. I hope you have some questions for Jessica and I, and ready for questions if you have any.
Hey, good stuff, JC. Jessica, thank y'all very, very much. It really does help think through this, that we all are dealing with this differently. We all have our internal struggles. Let me tell you, I'm so glad my kids are in high school and junior high that I don't have to, Jessica, sorry. Thrilled that I'm not spending all day helping them do homework and then trying to figure out how to work, and that work-life balance is all thrown off this last month. And we're going to have to continue, quite frankly, and adjust how we go back to work. How does the new norm look? And so great suggestions, JC. Really appreciate that. Good stuff. I'm not seeing any questions, but here we go. Jamie, how often do you suggest posting on your different social media platforms as to not to overwhelm viewers? That's an awesome question. JC?
Yes, that is an awesome question, Jamie. So regularly, depending, Jamie, I'm sorry, I don't know which organization you're with, but my recommendation is that you post at least 2 to 3 times a week so that you are staying relevant and in front of people. Jessica, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I would add to that, when you talk about posting 2 to 3 times a week, there's curated content and then there's created content, right? So you don't always have to feel the pressure of creating your own content. You can use, repost, reshare other articles you read in the newspaper that you feel valuable. If you saw someone else, a larger organization post and you want to share that counts too as that continual engagement. Because, if you're resharing something, maybe, 200-300 members or your followers didn't see that same article. So you're still sharing new information about it. So that can help you sometimes not feel as overwhelmed when trying to think of content.
Yeah, that's good question. And it's hard, but it's also very important that people do keep you in mind. And so posting or tweeting or retweeting, or there's so many platforms and I don't keep up with all of them, but obviously LinkedIn is another good one as well. So Chase, let me throw another question out. Do you have any advice or suggestions to help break down some barriers of those internally and externally who are a little more reluctant to adapt to this new normal and new communication platform? Another good question.
That's a really good question. Thanks, Chase, for the zinger there. No, he's a friend. That's why I'm teasing him. But so this, to me, goes back to what we were saying of finding ways to adjust to the new normal. So what we are all doing right now by having this Zoom meeting is we're moving forward. We're adjusting to the new normal. And so if you don't adjust, you get left behind. And so I'm not really describing how to break down those barriers, but I mean, my thought there is that you have to be willing to adapt and I guess for those that are less willing to adapt to change, show them examples of how others are moving forward and I don't,
Well,
Jessica, what other thoughts do you have?
yeah, and I've kind of experienced this with a few organizations that I work with, and I think one thing we have to remember is that yes, it's a change, right? We're all at home, but this whole Zoom virtual meeting, having to see each other, is a lot for some people, right? And you have to understand that everybody has different things going on at home, and for some people, sometimes being on a camera and looking at you is not going to fit in their day for them. And for some people, it's too much. Like, you got to know where people are, and I think you want them to come along, but it's okay if they just feel comfortable with just a conference call line and not doing Zoom, not doing GoToMeeting, not doing uh, Teams, not doing. It's okay. Like, but if they're still wanting to plug in through a conference call and that's what works for them and they can commit to that, and sometimes you got to just go with that and make and stick with their comfort level. A lot of people are just feeling outside stress from so many things. You don't want to add that extra layer of just trying to figure out new tools. But then as time goes along with those conference calls, bringing up the features of using some of this new technology, wouldn't it be nice if we could share screens? Wouldn't it be nice if, we could see each other? And I think making sure it's okay, but not being too forceful is kind of easing people into this new normal.
Yeah. Thanks, Jessica. And I would just sort of add to that, meet people where they are, and help them adjust. Be encouraging where you can, but also recognize that you may need to adjust for them.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks for the question, Chase. Well, listen, guys, we've run a little long, but thanks so much, JC and Jessica. We really appreciate y'all taking the time to be with us today. And to our partners, thank y'all for tuning in, and we value what y'all are doing. We're with you as you continue to adjust, and with great takeaways today. So we've got a little episode of a third edition of Coffee with Carl tomorrow. So if you're bored like John Cadena or Adam Vance, I see you there, Adam. Join in tomorrow for coffee and at 9 o'clock, and it's on Zoom. So listen, y'all have a great, productive day. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.